A cry for help. It's currently 3:30 in the morning as I am writing this. Whether or not I post this now or wait, I have yet to determine that. I just had the strangest, if not the most terrifying and realistic dream I've ever had. Before I go any further though, you should all know the beginning. I live in a small town on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, with my daughter Vanessa, Hilliard, Ohio to be exact. Her mother, Haley, died when Vanessa was about 6. Towards the end of her life, she began to fall into a deep depression. We both had to work full-time, but we still couldn't seem to make quite enough to live comfortably. Don't get me wrong, we were thankful for everything that we had, but it was still a struggle. She worked overtime every night just to bring home a little extra cash, and it drained her. She began to look into ways to help heal and revive her dissipating energy. I never questioned what she was doing. She was focusing on herself to heal, and I supported her as much as I could. Apparently, she found something that worked because for the last few days of her life, she was the happiest, most energetic person in the world. She said she had finally found her spirit guide. The night she died, Haley was coming home late from work, and Vanessa wanted to wait up for her because she couldn't fall asleep until Mommy read her a bedtime story. It got to be about 10:30 p.m., and I hadn't heard anything from Haley, which was not like her. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. No answer. I was about to call again when a knock came at the door. "Mommy!" Vanessa exclaimed with joy as she ran to the door. "Sweetie, wait for me," I said to her as I got up off the couch. She flung the door open, and there stood a police officer. "You're not Mommy," she said, looking up at him. "I'm sorry, officer, we're just waiting up for my wife. Is there anything I can help you with?" "It's quite all right, sir. Are you Mr. Horvath?" "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, but what exactly is happening?" "It's your wife, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to come with me." At the sound of that, my heart dropped. I wanted to ask what happened, if she was okay. Was she hurt? So many questions ran through my mind, but I couldn't find the strength to voice my thoughts. I scooped up Vanessa and we got in the back of the police car. The officer sped down the road. My heart was going as fast as the cruiser. We started to slow down, and I noticed a guardrail with a huge dent in it. My gaze then shifted to the sight of ambulances and fire trucks surrounding a black Toyota Corolla with the front completely smashed. My heart dropped. That was Haley's car. I rushed out of the cruiser and ran towards the paramedics. I ran and I ran, but it felt like I was moving in syrup. The harder and faster I ran, the slower I felt. One of the paramedics stepped in front of me and attempted to hold me back. "Sir, please, stay back." "Haley! Haley!" I screamed as I continued to try and fight my way past him. He was a thin-built man, so I was surprised at the strength he had and the ability to keep me at bay. "Mr. Horvath, please. Please stay here. They're doing everything that they can. It's going to be okay. Just let things happen." The last bit caught me off guard, but what I focused on was the genuine concern I heard in his voice. It calmed me down, and I relaxed. I gained my composure and asked him what had happened. She says she fell asleep at the wheel. She hit the guardrail, and the vehicle flipped and rolled a few times. She's unconscious now, but we're doing everything we can to pull her from the vehicle." I looked over his shoulder and could see the paramedics pulling Haley from the car and placing her on the stretcher. May I go see my wife, please?" He stepped to the side and I walked towards my wife. Her clothes were tattered and her blonde hair was matted down with blood. Her face was cut up pretty bad and smeared in blood. I knelt down next to her and grabbed her hand. I began to cry. I raised her hand to my lips and I kissed it. "Mommy?" I heard a small voice say behind me. I turned and Vanessa was standing behind me looking at Haley. And then Haley opened her eyes. "Hey, baby," she said to her. Vanessa joined me next to her mother, and the three of us all held hands. No words were said, but none had to be. At 11:15 p.m., Haley was gone. After the funeral, Vanessa withdrew within herself pretty bad. The little girl who loved to go outside and play astronaut had isolated herself to her room. Gone was the imaginative, wide-eyed, creative spirit whose smile could light up an entire room. The last thing I had of Haley seemed to have died. I didn't blame her. She was grieving in the only way she knew how. I would come home from work, she would come home from school, I would make dinner and we ate together. Then she would go back to her room, and that process would repeat. As the years went by, we healed. Just like any wound, it would scar over, but it would always be visible. When Vanessa was 15, she was a sophomore at Hilliard Davidson High School. During the second half of the semester, I saw her open back up again. She smiled more, laughed almost every second she could, and found a great group of friends. She made varsity track, and I couldn't have been prouder. Earlier today, she came home and asked to join a sleepover her friends were having. Of course, I was going to let her go. I dropped her off at her friend's house and told her to let me know when she wanted me to pick her up and if she needed anything. I came home, made myself a quick, hungry man meal, and went to bed around 10:30 p.m. Now, here comes the part that I've been dreading about writing since I started. My dream. My dream went like this. I was standing in front of our house, and it appeared to be beaten down as if it had been abandoned for many years. There were wood boards on the outside of the house that were cracked and rotting away. The shutters were barely hanging onto the sides of the house, and the sky was a swirling vortex of purple and black with cracks of thunder in the background. I walked up the steps to the house, and every time my feet came down, the wooden steps creaked and groaned as if they were screaming out in pain. Every step closer, the wind began to pick up more and more until it felt like I was standing in a hurricane. There was a dead oak tree next to the house that began to shake, its lifeless branches scratching at the side of the house as if it were trying to claw its way in. Upon entering the house, the door slammed shut behind me, and I was in complete darkness. Then, the ceiling cracked, and a hole appeared, allowing a little light to shine through. The pillar of light shone on the basement door, and without any hesitation I went to the door. It opened with a long, creaky, squeaking sound that seemed to echo throughout the house. The light shone down into the basement as I began my descent. The air was damp and musty, as if I was walking into the bottom of a crypt. Every step down the stairs resounded in a heavy thud that vibrated off of the walls. The walls to the basement were stone, and they were all wet. Once I reached the bottom of the stairs, I noticed that there was a hole in the wall on my left. The hole was about 6 feet wide and was a few feet tall. I couldn't see that far into it because it was pitch black in there. Dismissing the hole, I began to explore the basement. I was looking for something, but I didn't know what exactly I was looking for. After not finding anything of significance, I made my way back to the stairs to search the rest of the house. For some unknown reason, I was brought back to the hole in the wall. The moment I looked into the hole, this rancid smell began to emanate from it. Hot air began to blow out of it, and I saw 2 glowing red eyes looking at me. For a moment, they just stayed motionless as if sizing me up. Then they got slightly bigger and bigger and bigger. It took me a while, but I realized that the creature with those eyes was coming towards me. Black smoke began to seep out of the wall as if the wall was vomiting, and the smoke began to spiral upward as I took a few steps back. The thing was about 12 feet tall. It had very broad shoulders but was hunched over a bit. It was wearing a black tattered cloak and its hood was up. However, the hood did not conceal what was underneath. It was a goat head. The horns spiraling out of its head were black as onyx, and its eyes were glowing a red color that can only be seen when there are embers in a fire. Slits like a cat were in its eyes. It took a step towards me, and a hoof protruded out of the bottom of the cloak. The hoof came down, and the whole house began to shake as if caught in an earthquake. I tried to step back, but I was frozen in place. With every step the monster took, the house shook more and more. Parts of the ceiling began to collapse around me. Every time I would turn to run, part of the ceiling would fall in front of me, barely crushing me. I turned around once more, and the thing was right in front of me. It bent down to me, so its face was right in front of mine. I could feel its hot breath on my face, and it smelled of rotting meat. It looked into my eyes with its glowing red ones, and I could feel it staring straight into my soul. It smiled a sinister smile, showing rows upon rows of sharp, jagged teeth. A long, slimy, forked tongue slithered out of its mouth and licked its lips. My body was shaking with fear. I tried to shout for help, but words wouldn't get past my throat. Then it changed back into smoke, flew past me, and went up the basement stairs. After a few seconds, a girl's scream rang throughout the house. The house began to fall apart again the longer the scream went on. I grabbed the railing of the stairs for balance with one hand and did my best to plug my ears with the other. The scream sounded so familiar. Then it hit me. It was Vanessa screaming. I rushed up the stairs, but before I could reach the door, it blew open and I was knocked down. I heard a deep, guttural laugh as I stood up. I looked back towards the top of the stairs, and the creature was standing at the top. In front of him stood my daughter. His talon-like fingers were gripping both her shoulders. In her hands she was holding something, but I couldn't make out what it was. I screamed at the creature to let her go, but it just chuckled. I tried to get Vanessa's attention, but even that was fruitless. I broke down in tears, begging to know why this thing was holding onto my daughter. The creature swirled in a vortex of black, and it changed form. Standing there now was my wife. She looked the way she did the night she died, all beat up, blonde hair matted down with blood. "Hey, baby," she said to me. The voice was hers, but in my head I could hear its true voice. It smiled at me with those shark teeth, and I just froze. I had no idea what to do. Vanessa tossed what she was holding down the stairs toward me, and it landed at my feet. I knelt down to pick it up, and my heart sank when I recognized what it was. It was a Ouija board. I looked up the stairs to see them still standing up there. Then, simultaneously, the creature laughed and Vanessa screamed. The house began to split in two. I never had the chance grab anything, and I fell into the abyss. I saw the creature pick up my daughter and carry her away. I hit the bottom of the abyss, and as I looked up, the Ouija board fell straight towards my face. Right before it hit me, I jolted awake. Apparently, I had fallen off of the bed while sleeping. I attributed that to me falling into the black abyss in my dream. I stood up and immediately felt woozy. My head felt like it was being split open by a sledgehammer. I placed my hand to my head and immediately felt something wet. When I pulled it away, I saw blood. I stumbled towards the bathroom. I must have hit my head pretty hard because my balance was terrible, and my eyes couldn't focus on anything. It felt like I was wearing beer goggles. I made it to the bathroom and turned on the light. The cut was on the side of my head and didn't appear to be too bad. I pulled a Band-Aid out of the medicine cabinet and then took some ibuprofen. I went to splash some cool water on my face, and the feeling of the water cascading over my face was one of the best feelings I could ever describe. I dried my face and looked into the mirror. That was one hell of a dream, I said to myself. Now my bathroom, which is always the case in a master bedroom, is connected, and I have a clear view of my room when I look into the mirror. As I looked into it then, I saw something in the corner of my room. A tall figure was just standing there. My mind immediately went back to the creature that had appeared in my dream, and I froze with fear. In my head, I could hear the guttural laughter that chilled me to the bone. I finally composed myself and ran for the light switch. I flipped it on as fast as I could, and light flooded the room, taking the shadows with it. I looked to the corner where the figure was to confront it, but it wasn't there. It was my freaking coat rack. I kicked myself for being so scared and letting a dream get the best of me. I went to check my phone and saw the time was 11:15 p.m. As I unlocked it, I saw that I had a text from Vanessa. When I opened it, I can only imagine my reaction. The text said, "My friends and I are about to play a game where I can talk to Mom. Want me to say anything to her for you?" I immediately called her, but I didn't get any response. I tried again and again, but still nothing. I tried calling the parents of the girl she was having the sleepover with, but again nothing. After each failure, I heard the laugh again. It felt like my head was about to burst. Then I heard a loud clanking in the kitchen. It jolted me out of my panic, and I quickly went and got my Glock 48. I slowly made my way downstairs to see who was in my house. I made it to the main level and heard the noise coming from the kitchen. I poked my head around the corner and could see that someone was going through the contents of my refrigerator. I turned on the light switch and shouted at the intruder. The intruder turned towards me, and it was Vanessa. "Vanessa, what on earth are you doing here?" I asked her as I quickly hugged her. "I'm fine, Dad. I just didn't want to be there anymore, so I asked for a ride home." I literally just walked through the door. I didn't question it and pulled her back in for another hug. As I did so, something caught my attention. A smell. It was a mixture of my wife's perfume and the horrible breath of the creature. I looked at the window that was behind my daughter, and what I saw made me want to throw up. In the reflection, I saw that I wasn't hugging my daughter. I was hugging the monster. I quickly let go and looked at what spawn of hell was masquerading as my daughter. The face. It was a mixture of all three. The foundation of the face was my daughter's, but it was smeared in blood and gashes the way my wife's was. She had her mother's blonde hair matted to her head, but her eyes were that deep red with cat-like slits in them. She smiled, and I saw the rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth, and then the forked tongue slid out. It came at me, but I tried to push it away. "Hey, baby," the creature said in a voice that again was a horrible mixture of the three. "Come give us a kiss." I refused, and I could see the rage flare up in its eyes. With one flick of its hand, I was sent flying across the kitchen. My back struck the back wall, and I heard a crack as pain arched up and down my entire body. A picture, which was of the three of us, fell off the mantel and hit the floor. I looked up and saw the creature take one step, and it was right in front of me, hand at my throat. "What's the matter? You don't love us anymore?" it asked me. You're not my family," I stated, trying to sound as confident as I could. No, we are your family," it said. "Why are you doing this to me?" I screamed and demanded. The voice that spoke was that of only the creature. "I was there when your wife fell into depression. I was the one whom she found. I set her free. I was her spirit guide, as she liked to call me. Her guardian angel, how I detested that. Think about it. I've been there the entire time. All those years ago, I came to collect what which was owed me. You saw me that night, don't you remember? You tried to intervene instead of... His voice then switched to that of the paramedic that held me back that night, just letting things happen. When it saw my reaction, it let out a laugh that shook my entire house to its very foundation. But why my daughter? I asked in a voice that was pleading. She didn't do anything. Au contraire, Mr. Horvath. She asked me to be a part of it. Remember the text your delicious daughter sent you? Now I know you're a smart man. Think about it. She was going to play a game to talk to her mother. Now think back to your dream. What game was she playing? I knew exactly what he was talking about. The Ouija board, I said in a whisper. Louder, you pathetic cockroach of a man. Say it with your balls. That is if you have any. The Ouija board! I screamed in his face, and with that, I saw satisfaction in his eyes. She wanted to talk to her mother, but because her mother's soul is mine, I naturally came along for the ride. The creature let me go, and I sunk to the floor. As I looked up, its hoofed foot walked on the picture of my family, breaking it. I clawed my way to the picture and pulled it close to my chest, holding on to the one thing I had left of my family. Don't try and look for us, Daddy. I looked up and saw the image of my daughter standing there. You'll never find us, but if you do, let's just say you won't like the outcome. And with that, she walked out the door and disappeared into the darkness. I didn't even realize it's taken me this long to write this. I'm a few hours in, but it has only felt like minutes. I have decided to post this because I need the help. I'll post this everywhere, I don't care. Please, if any of you reading this knows anything or has any advice for me, please let me know. I'm in uncharted waters and I have no idea what I'm going to do. What was that thing? Does it have a name or a weakness? Can I beat it? I need to know, please. Please help me. I need to save my family, please. Well, that was pretty much it. I hope you liked the story till then. Bye-bye.